I am Tracy Otsuka, your host. Welcome back to ADHD for Smartass Women. You know what my mission is, right? To show you who you are and inspire you to be it. After meeting thousands of ADHD women, I can say with 100% confidence, every single one is brilliant at something, no exceptions. So, of course, I am just delighted to introduce you to Kelly Smith. Kelly Smith is a renowned yoga and meditation teacher, founder of Yoga for You, and host of the top rated podcast, Mindful in Minutes, which reaches over 250,000 listeners each month. She's guided more than 23 million meditations through her podcast alone, making her one of the most trusted voices in mindfulness today. Kelly's mission? It's to make meditation accessible, especially for busy, curious minds that don't always like to sit still. With training across multiple yoga and meditation disciplines, she blends science, we love that, compassion, and practical tools to help people reconnect with themselves in just a few minutes a day. Kelly lives with her family and her dog, Mila, and brings a sense of curiosity and calm to everything she does. Welcome, Kelly. Did I get all of that right?
Oh my gosh, you did, and I'm gonna, record that. It's so beautiful, it really hypes me up, and I think I'm gonna set it as my, alarm in the morning.
Yeah, I know, because we forget, right? We forget all the brilliant things we've done. So, Kelly, as an ADHD coach, I have come to believe that 75% of solving our own individual ADHD puzzle, well, it's all about mindset. So much so that over the last year, I have been delivering my own secret daily podcast. I call it Blends on Mindset to ADHD women. And I am not exaggerating when I say it has completely changed my life for the better. And I believe it's changed theirs too. So I am even a bigger proponent of mindset for the ADHD brain. And so that's why I am genuinely delighted to have you on this podcast.
Thank you so much, Tracy, and also kudos to not only a secret podcast, but you share on it every day?
I know. It's insanity. And
Wow.
I think my last day is June 1st. And
Are you
literally the
doing
whole time
1
I've
year?
been doing it, almost a year. The whole time I've been doing it, I've been thinking, what the hell? What the hell? What the hell? And now that I kind of see the forest for the trees, I'm like, that was the hell. I needed to go through this because it really changed just how I feel about all of it. But let's first start where we always start, and that is with your ADHD diagnosis. Would you mind sharing what your story is?
Yeah, so I am actually a double neurodivergent of both ADHD and dyslexia.
Hmm.
But I was first diagnosed with ADHD, dyslexia only into adulthood. But I always just knew I wasn't diagnosed until sixth grade. So, still in the grand scheme of things, pretty young. And I
Yeah.
think that at the time, just being a kid growing up in the 90s, we thought ADHD was just like busy boys,
Hmm.
right? That like, oh, boys that are busy and a handful, they must have ADHD. And the first thing that really stood out to me was school was a struggle. It wasn't for my sister, who's very neurotypical, and like school is just like would thrive in that environment. And I had a really hard time learning how to read. When we first started learning how to read in like first grade, dyslexia, and I didn't know it. And that kind of kicked off. And so, you know what I did? I just refused to do it. And they didn't tell my mom for a while. And she worked at the school. And then she was kind of
Oh,
like, once I finally told her, they're like, you're telling me you've been trying to teach her to read for like a month and you're just telling me now? Apparently, I just straight up refused. Yeah, that was one route to take. Now that I am a mom, I'm like, oh, that was a choice, Kelly. But that was kind of my first indication now in hindsight that maybe just the way that I learn information is different. And I always felt a little bit different, couldn't really put a finger on what it was. And I think because my sister was so neurotypical and was really thriving in an academic environment and I wasn't, that then my parents were kind of able to compare and contrast in a way to be like, something different is going on here. And my mom was always my best advocate. And so
mhm.
then as I got a little bit older, continued to struggle in different areas in school. Then we went and I got tested for a bunch of different things and we landed on ADHD.
So, were you a difficult child or were you the typical girl who is people pleasing? And I mean, we're not all like that, but many of us with the ADHD are. And so, we mask it, but for like the learning, challenge. I mean, clearly a huge part of your struggle was you were struggling to read in the way that they were teaching you.
Mhm.
And so was there anger around that? And is that where the defiance came from, where you were like, screw this? This is not working. I know this isn't working, and I'm not doing this anymore.
No, that wasn't it. I think it was not defiance, it was low self-esteem. And
Oh,
I think because also being a woman, and this is so I mean, this is all of it. How many guests, how many of your listeners have told you these most like messed up stories being a neurodivergent woman and just the assumptions people make about you? But everyone just assumed I was dumb
oh,
or that I just couldn't do it. And they'd say things like, well, at least she's cute.
yeah. So they created the low self esteem, is what they did.
And I was in first grade. So I was what,
Mhm.
6.5, 7. I knew it was hard for me, and I think I felt a lot of shame around that, and I just felt like I just won't try. So it really didn't feel my struggles never really felt like defiance. It felt like really low self-esteem, a struggle with confidence, and then just feeling really dumb and just being like, I don't know, I'm not getting it. So it was more of like a shutdown than
Mhm.
anything. I'll have to ask my mom if she would deem me as difficult. I will say my grandpa, who's 95 and still with us, he has always said, "That Kelly sure has a twinkle in her eye," which is kind of his way of saying, I don't know if my mom would categorize me as full-blown difficult, but a piece of work in some things because there's also I know we'll talk about this, but I do have some great neurodivergent strengths too. But yeah, so I don't know. I'll have to ask her if she would deem me as difficult or just unique.
So you weren't a people pleaser.
Yes and no. I really wanted my peers to like me. Again, I had really, really low self esteem for a very long time. I
Mm.
did not fit in. My peers were not nice to me. And I think it was just, I wanted to be accepted. I don't know if it was true, deep, like people pleasing or just
Mhm.
like, I was just so lonely. I wanted people to just accept me in any way because I knew I was different. They kind of knew I was different. Also, I was just like a little quirky. Like I got into like yoga when I was really young. It's just a little bit different. And now I know different is beautiful, but I think it was more that I just wanted people to like, I just wanted anyone to think I was great because it didn't feel like anyone other than like my parents thought that.
So did you struggle with friends and relationships?
I did. I was a lonely gal growing up. And, the funny thing is, this isn't necessarily ADHD, but it is meditation related. But I think the more that you get to know yourself, so something I love to do is help people connect to their true self, like
Mhm.
their soul space, whatever you want to call it. And the more that you get to know yourself, your people start to show up. I think there's authenticity in like authenticity is magnetic. And it wasn't really until I would say like my mid 20s when I kind of said, screw it. Like, I'm just going to be a yoga teacher, which is what my dream was. But a lot of people thought that was like kind of a throwaway job at the time.
Yeah.
And I just kind of said,
Can't make
screw
any
it.
money doing that.
Yeah, you can't make money doing that. Oh, my husband is now a physician, but at the time he was still trying to get into medical school. But they're like, "Oh, so you're just gonna teach yoga until you can be a doctor's wife?" Just like really like kind of
Yeah.
condescending stuff like that. And it wasn't until I just finally sort of steered into the skid and I was like, "Okay, whatever. Like this is just gonna make me happy." And I just started doing what really fulfilled me. And that's when things really started happening. I started finding my people, finding the most beautiful
Mhm.
women to build wonderful friendships with, started living kind of more on my own terms, like a traditional academic setting. I don't thrive in that. So working for myself was just so much better to be able to do it that way. And so I just started to just lean into and say,
Mhm.
okay, well, you think what you want to think.
Yeah. So you said you wanted to be a yoga teacher as a child. Like, how young were you? That's insane.
Like when I was 16, my mom had stage 3 breast cancer and I was one of her caregivers. She's still with us, so it has a happy
Yay.
ending.
She's
Yay,
she's healthy.
mom.
She's good.
She's healthy, she's great, she's like the best grandma, so
Oh.
yay for Mama Smith. But even then, I remember there was this moment where one of her oncologists had just mentioned like mindfulness visualization was really good for her immune system and
Mhm.
her white blood cell count. And I'd already been taking yoga classes as a form of cross training for my sports. I started doing that like before I could drive. My mom would have to like drive me to class sometimes.
What was your sport?
I played softball was my big one. And then also a big one for me was volleyball. in high
Okay.
school. But
Okay.
softball was like the big one. I took that into college. Yeah, so that was like my big sport, but I was always just sporty and very physical. And so, yeah, I just was like into yoga. This would have been when I was 16, 2006, even younger, so like 2004. Like
Mhm.
kids weren't taking yoga classes and practicing mindfulness then. They were like, you know, and so, but there are these moments where my mom and I would do like some visualizations, just a little bit of breathing or like some gentle
Mm.
yoga and just kind of like talk through some things. And I remember her saying, I was just talking to my husband about this the other day, but she was just like, "Oh, you're pretty good at this. Like maybe you should do this." And I was like, "Ugh, mom, that's not a real job." I was like, "That's not a real job, mom, teaching yoga. Come on." But it yoga and mindfulness was always just this life raft that I needed in those really, really tough moments. And I think for a lot of yoga teachers, there's a moment where it's just like you have a teacher or you take a class or you connect something in yourself that's just so powerful that you're like, I want to give that to other people. Like, I want to be that person to give that experience for others. So when I graduated college and didn't know what I wanted to do with my life and had a piece of paper that I don't use, never used a day in my life,
Yeah.
um,
What was your major?
psychology.
Oh, well, so you probably do use it.
Maybe a little bit. Yeah.
It fits.
Yeah, yes, I guess it's kind of, in the same realm, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life because I didn't want to get a master's,
Mhm.
which I would have had to kind of practice more traditionally. And so I took a yoga teacher training and just fell in love with it and started working in management and teaching yoga on the side. And then when my husband got into medical school, he moved me to a one bar, one Walmart town in Missouri.
Oh,
And that was an experience. And I thought, well, I have no friends here, no job, just me and Mila. We just gotten her as a puppy. I was like, why not try to follow my dream here? I'm unemployed. My husband's always at school and I've got nothing to do. Let's make a dream happen. And that's where it all started.
are you still in that town?
No, no, but you know what? I was kind of horrified when I moved there the first time. I have so much love. Anyone listening, if there's anyone listening from Kirksville, Missouri, let us know because there's not a lot of people in that town. But it ended up being such a special place for me because when we moved there, I started with just one class at my husband's med school. It's one of those towns where it's like there's an undergrad and a med school, and that's like just kind of the town, where it's like there's nothing really
Yeah.
a whole lot going on there. And I just started teaching there and I ended up building and building and building. And then I ended up opening a yoga studio there. And like some of my most special memories, both personally and professionally, kind of came from that area. So it was kind of like a, lemons to lemonade
Yeah.
situation. So I do hold it fondly in my heart. But no, we moved away from there maybe 8-ish years ago.
So you said something which just, ding, 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 as far as my belief that our best purposes give meaning to our past and how your mother struggled with this cancer diagnosis. And that's how you were introduced to yoga and mindset and meditation and all of it, right? Mindfulness, I guess, it's all the, same thing. And right then and there is when you realize, oh, there's something here. It's more than just helping my mom. I'm connected. And maybe that was a big part of it, but you were connected to it from then on. And it's still, like you said, you really believe in helping women become more of, you didn't say it exactly this way, but becoming more of who they really are. And that's my philosophy as well. And I just love it. So I wear this bracelet every year. I pick a word, and this year it was 1 million, and so 1 million is engraved on this on the clasp. And the whole point of it is this year I want to help 1 million women, whether it's through my podcast, whether it's through my book, whether it's through anything, right? My programs, whatever. You have guided over 23 million meditations, which is so amazing. So, congratulations. But I want to go back to the beginning. Like, we know what pulled you into meditation. How did it shift your relationship with your brain?
It helped me debunk a lot of myths that I had about my brain. Now I joke that when people say, "Oh, I can never meditate. I
Yeah.
have ADHD. Oh, my brain is too busy. Oh, I'm too ADD for that," or whatever, whether
Yeah.
they, have been diagnosed or not. And I always say that's like saying you're too dirty to take a shower. Like, how are you going You can always count on the neurodivergence to just tell it to you like it is,
Oh
even in your meditation teacher.
my God, I love that.
But it really is it's like, how are you gonna help that? How are you gonna help that if your brain is just so, so, so busy and you never do anything to work on slowing it down? It's never gonna get better. I shouldn't say it's never, but I
It's
think
yeah.
of meditation for the brain, especially the ADHD brain. It is like going to the gym and lifting weights or doing resistance training for your muscles. It's like you're
Mhm.
never going to build this muscle mass. You're never going to get stronger or more stable or whatever your goal is without going and doing this intentional work because our brains change just like our muscles, right? We
Yeah.
we know all about neuroplasticity. I know you love to talk about this too. Our brains can change and evolve. So meditation is like that resistance band or the weight that you're picking up. And it's not like you're going to go to the gym and take like one heavy dumbbell and like throw it around a little bit and be like, look at my arms, look at how strong they are now. It's you meet yourself where you're at. Maybe you're starting with these little like 3 pound weights, right? You and I have both had kids, right? So I think about it as postpartum and you're like, my core doesn't exist anymore. Like, where did my abdomen go? And you have to rebuild it from the ground up.
Mhm.
And it's you start where you're at. That's just like deep breathing to be like, where is my abdomen again? And then it gets a little bit stronger, a little bit stronger. You layer a little bit more in. And so when you think about the ADHD brain, meditation is like that. You start just right, absolute bare bones, like a few minutes every day, just working on it. And then over time, it'll get a little easier. So you add in a little bit more, maybe a little bit more time. Maybe make something for those of, well, everyone listening has ADHD that's listening, but a lot of times guided meditations are the best place for you to start because you can just listen to the guide lead you through it. So
Mhm.
something that may then feel more challenging is trying to do more of what's called an open monitoring meditation, which would be just sitting there, maybe following your breath or repeating a mantra, something like that. But then over time, your brain starts to change and adapt. So what happens is usually after about 8-ish weeks or so, the amygdala, which is the pain, fear, worry, anxiety center of the brain, and we all know that lovely little correlation between ADHD and anxiety. They are pals that go way back. And so the amygdala begins to shrink and atrophy. So it becomes smaller and less reactive to those anxiety, pain, fear triggers. And the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain right behind the forehead that has to do with memory, recall, some of this higher executive functioning, emotion regulation, that gets bigger and stronger and denser over time. So we're actually changing and rewiring our brain to have less anxiety and to have a better capacity to focus, remember, and manage our emotions, which is amazing. The final thing I'll say about your brain and meditation and the ADHD brain is that you're training yourself. It's called a meditation practice because you're just practicing. We put so much pressure on, like, oh, I have to meditate. So I need to magically just sit down, turn my brain off like a light switch, and there just like won't be thoughts. That is not what it is. That's not how it works. That is not what happens. It's about sitting there and having one point of focus. So if your mind's a light bulb, we're walking around all day, light bulbs on, light shining all directions. When we meditate, the light bulb turns into a laser pointer and you focus that laser on one single thing. That laser, especially for brains like ours, it's going to go, oh, it's going to deviate, right? It's going to start going somewhere else. You're just going to bring it back. You're going to get distracted, bring it back, distracted, bring it back. I would say average would be a distraction every few seconds. That's normal. That's average. It's about getting distracted, coming back, getting distracted, coming back. Every time you do that, it's like using that resistance band. It's like lifting one of those weights a little bit stronger, a little bit stronger, a little bit stronger. And before you know it, the time between your distractions will get bigger. And that's where you're going to see the quote like improvement in focus. It's not that you're magically not distracted anymore. So you're able to sit there and focus for a longer duration of time. Maybe instead of every 3 seconds, we're distracted, it's every 10 seconds. And we're able to then translate that skill because you're just training your brain to be able to focus on just one thing at a time, which for us, very hard. Then you're able to translate that skill into other things, into reading a book, into your work skills, into whatever it is, that ability to have single pointed concentration.
You said something that I've never heard anyone say before when it comes to meditation or mindset, or what do you call the whole thing that you're doing?
I would say mindfulness and meditation. Mindfulness is just being present in whatever you're doing. Meditation is a singular act of single pointed concentration. It's like meditation and mindfulness.
What you said, though, which I've never heard said before, but it makes so much sense, is You're reducing anxiety. And less anxiety is going to be more executive functions. Like it makes perfect sense. So you're teaching ultimately how to regulate the nervous system, which brings down our anxiety.
Yes, how to regulate the nervous system, and it actually changes your brain
Hmm.
to have smaller reactions, physiological reactions to the trigger. So it's kind of doing this twofold of nervous system support, absolutely, and actually changing that center of the brain for the better.
So your baseline for where you get anxious is just going to automatically be higher.
Yeah, I think of it as kind of like this threshold. So the second book that I wrote, it's called You Are Not Your Thoughts, and it's all around meditation and anxiety. And it's basically this idea of like you can have these thoughts or you can kind of have this anxiety threshold, if you will. But if we're
Hmm.
starting and that threshold is like deep, teeny tiny, even if we could work on expanding that a little bit, we have a little bit more room where we don't feel like every tiny little thing skyrockets that anxiety, right? Just give it a little more breathing space. Even that can be huge. And then you get that neurological piece in there as well. So then when we do get those anxiety triggers, which we all do, I'm a meditation teacher and I still get anxiety. I woke
Yeah.
up in the middle of the night last night thinking about just a bunch of scheduling logistics for my household and my kids.
Mm.
Why my brain decided it was going to try to figure out all of our obligations from now until mid May, I don't know, but it did. But then when we have that neurological piece of supporting the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, then not only are we kind of growing our threshold or our capacity to like have space for anxiety and have it not feel so intense all the time, then
Hmm.
we get those triggers too. Those, think of them as like it doesn't spike as high. It's not like boom, now my anxiety is so bad that I like
Yeah.
can't even function. So you're creating more space, you're creating a larger threshold just to manage things like anxiety or your anxious thoughts, things like that. And then you're making it so that the spikes aren't as intense as well.
So I'm thinking it's also a strategy, though, right? So now you know, oh, I have control over this. So I'm feeling anxious. Now I have a strategy to alleviate the anxiety, or just kind of like a balloon. You pop the air and, it just kind of shrivels.
Yeah. And meditation is this great thing where it kind of works twofold, where it is a long term strategy of we know we're supporting our nervous system, also helping to support stronger vagal tone. So your vagal nerve. Are you familiar with this, Tracy? I'm sure you are.
Yes, but please explain because someone
Okay.
else might not be.
Sure. So the vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve. It's the connection. Basically, it's the mind gut connection. It's one of the longest nerves in our body, runs from our brain all the way down to our intestines. It is a bilateral nerve. So it runs on either side of your body, but through your throat. So there's certain things you can do, certain breath work, even an inhale through the nose, a big exhale, sigh out can be good for activating your vagal nerve,
Humming.
singing, humming. A lot of things can activate it. And the more vagal tone or the stronger your vagus nerve is, the greater an ability you have to kind of kick into that rest and digest and out of the fight or flight mechanism. So meditation helps to support your nervous system, your vagus nerve, your just overall ability to function in the long term, right? Changing your brain, increasing vagal tone, all that in the long term. And it's this really great practice in the moment when you're feeling anxious, overwhelmed, overstimulated. Don't even get me started on why there's always crumbs on my floor because my kids are 1 and 4. And I have to wear socks or slippers because those dang crumbs are always sticking to my feet and I hate it. It's just like those things, whether you feel overwhelmed, stressed, anxious, like overstimulated, all of those things. Meditation is such a beautiful tool for in the moment as well. So it's working long term to make these big changes. And you have this little tool in your toolbox where you're like, whoa, I am reactive right now. I am amped up. I just need to turn the volume down a little bit. So I'm going to do a meditation for myself.
You explained that so much better than I would have explained it. I'm curious, do you have really good working memory? Like, are you
Oh,
really
thanks.
good at remembering things and then relaying them back? If you have interest.
Let me give you an example because you're the expert here, Tracy. You tell me if this would be working memory or not. I cannot for the life of you tell you where my cell phone is every single day when I'm trying to get out the door. It's
Uh-huh.
who knows where, left wherever I left it with my 18 glasses of water that have also been dangled throughout the house. However, if my husband says, hey, do we have more baby Tylenol? And I'll go, yes, we should have two new bottles of infant Tylenol in the downstairs bathroom in the cupboard on the third shelf behind the extra toilet paper. Have you looked there? Even though I bought it a year and a half ago. Is that working memory?
They
Or is
both
that
are.
just
It's the system that temporarily holds and manipulates information so you can remember, like, I think that's why, like, word problems. I could never do word problems because I couldn't remember what the numbers were. Or
Mm,
even, a lot of the description. The only reason I'm asking this is because my son also has ADHD and dyslexia. And he has he's just so good with, I mean, he has to be interested in it, definitely. But when he's interested in it, he can remember all the stats, numbers, figures. And I've met a number of people with ADHD and dyslexia. And so I've always thought, like our governor of California, like he apparently flunked out of school, but he is just the best public speaker ever. And so I'm always wondering, is there a connection there? You know?
I don't know. I don't know if I would say I have that strong of working memory,
Uh huh.
but my strengths, and you can tell me if the other people you know that fit into a similar box as me have these similarities too. I'm just the right amount of reckless where I'm like, yeah, let's give that a try. Like the right amount of impulsive and reckless where it serves me well kind of in business and also creatively. Where I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, well, I'll take a stab at that. Let's see what happens. Of course,
Hmm.
hyperfixations, always
Yes.
good for teachers when you just
Hmm.
get really hyperfixated. And then one of my strengths is teaching people. And I know this is one of my strengths because I had to learn how to adapt to like take in information and like reteach it to myself.
Yes.
So now when I do like meditation teacher trainings, yoga teacher trainings, continued ed, workshops, those types of things, taking these kind of complex or more abstract ideas and being able to really boil it down and be like, hey, this is what you need
Yeah.
to know in a tangible way. That is definitely one of my strengths for sure. And then creative writing. So, because every meditation that I write is really creative writing. It's a lot of imagery. It's a lot of, taking someone there, telling a story, guiding someone on a journey. And I've been doing that every week on my podcast for the last 8 years. And I still love doing it and love coming up with new ideas.
It's interesting. I was listening to your podcast and I'm like, what does this woman do? Does she just basically record when she feels like it? Because what a great strategy. Or because you don't have set days, right?
Well, I do. So I do a meditation every Sunday, and then every other Wednesday, I do what's
Mm,
called like a freeform episode, which is kind of more of like a lecture. So I
mm,
release, depending on how it falls, anywhere from 6 to 8 episodes a month, which is a lot. But every Sunday, like clockwork, I have a guided meditation, but I can kind of batch create in a way, which is how I work best creatively. I really believe that one of the secrets to success is figuring out, and I know you feel the same way too, but figuring out how you work best.
yeah.
So if someone said, oh, Kelly, I want to start a podcast, like, what's your method so I could do it? I'd be like, I don't know if this would be the best method for you, but like for me, once I'm in creative mode, I like to have a writing day where I write a bunch of meditations, do a bunch of creative writing, and then have like a recording day, which usually means get everyone to leave the house
Little
for
kids.
yes, a handful of time. And so for me, I kind of have these like gears that I have to be in these modes. And that's what works best for me. I can't work like episode by episode. I have to be like, okay, I'm really inspired. This is kind of woo woo and out there, but I'm like, "Ah, I'm just so inspired by the chakras right now. So I'm going to write a meditation for each one of the chakras, and then I'll have eight, and then I'll record them all and just kind of sprinkle them throughout the year. I don't know. That's just like my method. Um,
Mm.
but I think it's just about figuring out how you work best and not fighting the system. I know if I have a deadline, I'm going to start that project 48 hours before the deadline. It'll get done. But I've just learned that about myself. So I'm not going to stress myself out a week
Yeah.
before because I know I'm not going to touch it. And it always gets done.
So after 7 or so years of recording this podcast, it's not a big deal. So you actually do have a schedule. It's just not like, oh, the Sunday is every Sunday. But then the other ones they are actually scheduled.
They're
It's just
set
you
every other
decide
Wednesday.
when you're going to record them and
Yeah.
you'll batch them. I do the same thing.
Yes. And it all goes into my color coded spreadsheet.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm sure. So, where do you get your inspiration from? Like, how do you decide what you're going to talk about? It sounds like it just comes to you.
The guided meditations, I would say, do. I do take requests, for topics. A lot of times people won't request, like, super specific techniques or anything like that. They'll be like, "Hey, can you do a meditation for loneliness? Can you do a meditation
Yeah.
for" whatever it is. Put in whatever you magically would want a guided meditation for. So I'll sometimes get topic requests, and if I get that request, like, more than once and it's like people collectively want that, I'll
Uh-huh.
do that. But sometimes people will send in topic requests of things that they're wanting a meditation for. Otherwise, I just kind of share what speaks to me, whether it's something that I'm personally meditating with or something that I just find interesting, or like right now I live in Minneapolis, so it's been like a very long winter, but like
Yeah.
the sun is shining in from my window. And so I'm like, "Ugh, I just want to write something about like new beginnings and like the blossoming of spring." So sometimes I just get inspired by that too. And then the freeform episodes, it's kind of the same thing. It's sort of just what I want to talk about, what I want to share. If there's something that I've been doing, or if I learned about something new, I love to talk about that. Or, report on whatever my latest hyperfixation is in the space. But that's definitely more of like more lecture style, like here's some information, lots of science in those ones.
I
Yeah.
love that because again, I was one of those people that I can't do that. And this is a bunch of hippy dippy woo woo. And then once I started to read about the science and how it affects the ADHD brain, that's when I was like, oh, maybe I should be paying attention to this. So you are so good at meditation. It feels so light. It feels so doable. So for the woman who has tried everything and she's failed a dozen times, what is the easiest, most ADHD friendly way to actually get started and stick with this?
Find a guided meditation from a teacher whose voice you like. I know that sounds so simple, but you need to throw all of these myths out, right? That you need to sit for 30 minutes, that you have to do it in the morning or at night, or it has to be this way. It needs to be at least 10 to 15 minutes. No, throw all of that out the window. And just even a few minutes, a guided meditation, I think, is a perfect place to start, and listen to a few and find a teacher whose voice resonates with you. It is very, as I know from my own comment section, and review section, because isn't just podcast reviews like the wild wild west
Oh, or
sometimes?
how about Reddit?
Oh, I don't even go there. I
You'll
try to
never
stay
go there.
very I'm not super online. It's just better for me. And also, you know, the meditation teacher in me is just like, just focus on your own thing. Just stay in your little
Yeah,
meditation bubble, and like people will take what
absolutely.
resonates with them. And then if it doesn't, okay.
And
May
bottom
you be
line,
well.
you're the one who's doing it. They're sitting there commenting about it. Be the doer, right?
And the thing that I find interesting is sometimes I think you need more meditation. Sometimes when I do see these comments and they're so worked
Totally.
up,
I can
and
help you.
I think I understand why you're here. You seem a little bit tense. Let me help you.
Sometimes I will go, I'm not the sit in a chair and look at the doorknob. I've tried that too many times. But silly things like I'll be in the garden and I'll see a hummingbird or I'll see bumblebees. And it's just, no, I'm just intensely focusing on that bumblebee or that hummingbird. And it works.
I love it. Yes, I love it. And even downloading an app like Insight Timer, you can use it for
Mm.
free. There's a premium option. There's a free option where there's like probably 100,000 different meditation teachers on there. You can search by topic and then like save the teachers that you like, and then just kind of stick with that so you don't have to overthink it at first. But I think that's the best place to start. One other thing you can do if you are really like, I can't be still and meditate, go out for a mindfulness walk, no devices unless you need your phone with you for safety,
Yeah.
and don't listen to a podcast, don't do anything, just walk around your block and just be fully immersed in the sensation of just enjoying being outside for the walk. You can do that too.
Yep. You know what? I walk every morning with my dog. Well, we have 2 dogs, with our dogs and my husband, and balking at it, "And why do we have something else that's structured?" "I don't care if this is good for the dogs," the usual. And this is after I work out. What I started to do, though, was initially I had my phone, glasses, everything, just in case. Literally, probably 8 months ago, I said, What do you need your phone for?" My husband carries his, right? I stopped carrying my phone. I'm telling you, it made a huge difference. Just that little thing. So I'm all with you on that. Okay, so this podcast is all about strengths and the ADHD brain. So, in your experience, what are some of the unique strengths that ADHD brains bring to meditation or mindfulness that people don't usually talk about because we're so busy, talking about why this is so hard for us to do and why we can't do it?
What a beautiful question. I love that question. I think that we tell ourselves amazing stories, and I don't mean that as like a slight. I think that when you're sitting there in meditation, and sometimes where your mind goes is so beautiful, even though the point of meditation is to get distracted, come back, get distracted, come
Mhm.
back. I think we really bring a level of creativity to meditation. And something I have found is, when you find that point where you don't even have to be meditating, right? It's like you're driving, you're taking a shower, you're doing those things. There's a term for it, but I can't remember exactly where it is, where you're doing something where your brain can be just the right amount of relaxed. It's not asleep, obviously. And that's where you get your best ideas, right? They always say, oh, my best ideas come to me in the shower. Or I
Yeah.
always get the best ideas when I'm driving and I don't have something to write it down. A lot of times that will happen in meditation too, because you're finally getting your brain to relax a
Mhm.
little bit. That those beautiful, beautiful creative ideas that you have, because we are so creative, we see things differently and we have this
Mhm.
like deep, really interesting piece of us. But when the brain is constantly just a hamster running on the wheel and you can get it to slow down even enough or just relax a little bit, all of a sudden I'll just be like, you know what? It's like inspirational strike. Or I'll be
Mhm.
like, sometimes it almost feels like divine intervention, where it'll just be something I was thinking about, for a few days, something with my, son or something. And I'll be like, I wonder if maybe, maybe swimming lessons would be a better fit for him, whatever it is, the things that you're like thinking
Yeah.
about. And then you're like, I wonder if I should do it this way. And it almost feels like divine intervention,
Mhm.
which depending on what you believe, I mean, I do. I mean, there have been some things where I'm like, I don't know who that was, but thank you for your help. I needed it.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to the ADHD brain in particular, we are so creative. We see things so differently. We have such a unique perspective. And so when we finally slow down, it's like some of those more interesting things can come forward because we're not just like blah, all the time.
Right. Right. No, I think that's absolutely brilliant. Okay, Kelly, what is your number one ADHD workaround?
Is it bad to say meditation?
No, not at
Because
all. And we need something more than that. Yes, that is bad.
okay, so
It's not
yes,
bad.
definitely meditation for the long term. My other best ADHD workaround, honestly, it's lists and color coding those lists.
Mm. Are
So
you
right,
super organized?
not really, but I don't know, kind of. I'm also you're talking to meditation here, right? So meditation teacher. So you're not gonna be surprised by what I just say. I'm a Gemini sun and a Capricorn moon. If you don't know what that is, Tracy, some of
Oh,
your
no.
listeners will know.
Explain. I'm open.
Your astrology listeners are gonna be like, this makes sense.
I know
So
Gemini's what's two heads, right?
yeah, it's like
And
the twin.
Capricorn, they're
So
industrious. That's all
okay,
I know.
so yeah, Geminis kind of get a bad rap sometimes for being kind of like gossipy or like two-faced, but they're also, which I mean, I do sometimes like, someone's gossiping. I don't want to be a part of the gossip, but like my ears, I'll kind of be like, oh, what are you talking about? Just a little bit. But they're also very kind of like very chatty, like free flow, kind of like can hang out with anyone, that kind of stuff. But a Capricorn moon, they tend to be, they're very organized, like
Mm.
color coded, very like numbers driven, very kind of like dialed and focused. So, anyways, I find that writing a to-do list, which a lot of times there's going to be like 9 million things on it, right? But then color coding. So I like to keep color coded spreadsheets for like my podcast. So I know like what kind of meditation style I've done. So I don't
Mhm.
repeat that sort of stuff. But color coding in terms of like urgency, I find to be really helpful because then you look at that list and you're like, oh no, there's 50 things on here because your ADHD brain just dumped everything onto it that you quote need to do. So take like a highlighter, a different colored pen, and then like circle like three things in red, which means the things that absolutely need to get done today.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
then color code the things that's like probably should get that today. And then color code the things that's like, it would be nice if I got to that today. And then you can look at that and say, okay, I'm just going to start with my must get done today. And then you can take some of that pressure off too of just looking at that
Yes.
list, being like, what do I do? Where do I start? I could never get all of this done because you can't get it all
No,
done.
no.
So I find that
Oh,
to be helpful.
okay. Makes sense. So, Kelly, where do people find you if they want to know more about you and what it is that you do?
So I'd love to have anyone listening to come check out Mindful in Minutes. So anywhere you're listening to our voice or looking at us, you can type in Mindful in Minutes in the search bar. I would love to help you dabble in meditation. There's lots of 5-minute meditations over there. Start with one of those. Otherwise, my website, yogaforyouonline.com, it has information. I am on Instagram, but information on just the other things, little freebies, my books, that sort of stuff. You can kind of have a fun little click around there.
So, this is all going to be in our show notes, Kelly. Thank you so much for spending time with us here today to talk about meditation and mindfulness.
Thank you for having me and letting me share what I love. And I love chatting with you.
Yeah, me too. So, if this episode with Kelly resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you left a review. Our goal is to change the conversation around ADHD, one smart, capable woman at a time. When you leave a review, it helps more women discover this podcast, learn how their brilliant ADHD brains work, discover Kelly's podcast and her work, and start seeing their strengths clearly, maybe for the first time ever. So, if this episode moved you, now's the perfect time to pay it forward. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you here next week.